A millionaire comes home early, and his maid says, "Be quiet. Don't say a word." The reason was, Nathan hadn't even had time to set his keys down on the porcelain tray by the side table when everything changed color. The door had barely closed behind him when a sudden force yanked hard at his collar, dragging him out of the light of the main hall and hurling him into a narrow, suffocatingly dark corner. A trembling yet determined hand clamped over his mouth, cutting off a breath that never had the chance to become a sound. "Don't make a sound. Please, sir, just one noise, and they won't let you live." The whisper shattered right beside his ear. It carried no threat, only raw, panicked fear. He was pulled into a cramped space. A door slammed shut. Darkness, thick and absolute. There was only the wild pounding of his heart against his ribs and the ragged breathing of the person pinning him against the wooden wall. For a few brief seconds, Nathan truly believed he was about to die, that someone had broken in, that all his success, wealth, and power meant nothing in this moment. Then he saw her eyes. In the faint light seeping through the narrow crack of the cabinet door, Nathan recognized the woman's face in front of him. Dark eyes, wide and glassy, flooded with terror. So panicked they bordered on madness. "Lena?" he mouthed silently, the name never leaving his throat. Lena Cruz, the housekeeper who had worked in his home for nearly 3 years. The woman who always kept her head down, spoke softly, moved without making a sound. The woman whose face Nathan could almost never recall once he left the house. At this moment, she was invisible no longer. She looked like someone who had just seen a demon. "You can't step out there," Lena whispered, her voice shaking uncontrollably. "Please, you need to see this first." She nudged the cabinet door open slightly with her knee, creating a narrow slit that looked straight into the living room. There, beneath the chandelier's crystal glow, the room was drenched in a light that glittered, cold, indifferent. And there, at the center of it all, Elena Cole, his wife, was smiling. A light, effortless smile, as if this were nothing more than a pleasant evening. In her hand, a champagne flute caught the light like liquid gold. She was wearing the red silk dress Nathan himself had bought in Florence, the one she had said was reserved only for moments worth celebrating. And the man standing close beside her, holding the bottle he had just finished pouring, was Marcus, his younger brother, the man Nathan had once pulled back from bankruptcy, the man who had cried and said Nathan was the only support I have left. In the glittering light of the room, Marcus tilted his head and chuckled softly. Elena raised her glass. The two glasses clinked together, making a sound so small, yet sharp enough to split Nathan's world into two irreparable halves. Marcus leaned forward to pour more champagne. The movement was unhurried, confident. The expensive bottle released a soft, liquid sound, clearly audible in the stillness of the house. "Are you sure tonight was enough of a dose, Elena?" He glanced down at his wrist, the watch Nathan had once given him at a birthday party, the one he had pretended to be deeply moved by. He still looked steady on his feet. The doctors said the reaction would come faster than this. Nathan felt his knees go weak. The cramped darkness of the wardrobe suddenly became a standing coffin. The air thickened, clogging his lungs. Elena didn't answer right away. She took a sip of champagne, letting the rim of the glass brush her lips, then slowly lifted a hand to adjust a smooth lock of brown hair. The very gesture that had once made Nathan believe he was the most loved man in the world. "Relax, Marcus. The doctor said it takes about an hour after entering the system. Nathan's constitution is strong. He's not some fragile man." She took another sip. The light reflected off her perfectly applied makeup, making her skin look flawless. Nathan remembered that morning vividly. Elena had brought juice up to the bed. She had kissed his forehead and spoken in that familiar sweet voice. A new vitamin, good for his heart. Inside the wardrobe, cold sweat soaked Nathan's back. "He drank it all, right?" Marcus asked, his voice slightly tense. Elena let out a soft laugh. "Like always, he trusts me completely." She shrugged. "He complained it tasted a bit bitter, but I told him it was the minerals." Nathan felt his throat tighten. The metallic taste from that morning surged back vividly in his memory. The discomfort in his stomach, the sudden dizziness when he stood up, all the signs he had explained away as stress, as age, as work pressure. Marcus took a few steps, stopping near the fireplace. What if by the weekend his heart still hasn't stopped? We can't drag this out forever. The lawyer keeps pushing for the power of attorney papers. Elena set her glass down on the table and stepped closer to Marcus. The distance between them was uncomfortably intimate. "Don't worry. I increased the dose today," she said calmly. "Double." The words fell like a knife. Nathan felt Lena tremble. Her hand tightened around his arm as if afraid he might collapse right there. She shook her head slightly, signaling him not to make a sound. "Double?" Marcus frowned, then broke into an excited smile. "You're more ruthless than I thought." Elena smiled back without a trace of shame. "He deserves it. If he hadn't stubbornly clung to the company, we would have sold it last year. I'm tired of playing the perfect wife." Nathan stared at the woman before him, searching desperately for any trace of the person he had once loved. The woman who had cried at their wedding. The woman who had held his hand when he started his business. When he had nothing, there was nothing left. And if, hypothetically, Marcus lowered his voice, he doesn't die? What if it's brain damage instead? What if he wakes up and starts talking nonsense? Elena tilted her head, her eyes flashing with something dark and sharp. "Even better." Marcus looked at her. "I've prepared everything," Elena continued, her tone flat, as if reading a grocery list. "Diagnosis: mental disorder, persecutory delusions, loss of executive capacity. We'll place him in a private treatment facility. Isolated, no phone, no lawyers." She smiled. A dead man is still dangerous. A living man whom no one believes is much safer. Nathan felt his world collapse piece by piece. The doctor appointments Elena had so eagerly arranged, the sedatives she handed him every night, the moments he forgot passwords, forgot employees' names, forgot meeting schedules. None of it was illness. None of it was burnout. It was poisoning, manipulation. Marcus raised his glass. "So it's done. One way or another, my brother is off the board." Elena clinked her glass against his. "To a new future." Inside the wardrobe, Nathan no longer felt cramped. He felt as though he were standing inside a coffin set upright. A sharp pain tore through his chest. His heart thrashed wildly, fast and heavy, as if trying to break through his rib cage. The poison, combined with the emotional shock, began spreading faster through his blood. He collapsed. Lena panicked, rushing to support his full weight. She bit her lip until it bled to keep from crying out. Nathan's sweat soaked through her clothes. His body was icy cold, shaking violently. "Hold on," Lena whispered, her voice barely sound at all. "Please, hold on." In the living room, Marcus's voice suddenly turned sharp. "Did you hear that?" Lena froze. Elena stopped laughing. "Hear what?" "Just now," Marcus said slowly, his gaze drifting toward the hallway leading to the front door. "I thought I heard something." Nathan felt the blood in his veins turn to ice. He tried to open his mouth, to tell Lena to leave him behind, to run while she still could. But his throat was dry and his body no longer obeyed his mind. Elena shrugged, visibly irritated. "Probably the vacuum cleaner. That stray cat knocked something over again." Marcus wasn't fully convinced. He set his glass down on the table. "I'll check." Lena's breathing grew rapid. There was no time left to hesitate. She leaned close to Nathan's ear and whispered quickly, decisively, nothing like the trembling voice from before. "Listen to me. When I tell you to run, you run. Even if you have to crawl, you crawl. Do you understand?" Nathan couldn't answer, but he gave a slight nod, barely perceptible. Lena cast a quick glance inside the closet. Her eyes stopped on a stack of old, precariously piled decorative boxes in the corner. Christmas decorations from many years ago, thick with dust. A reckless idea flashed through her mind, and it was the only chance they had. Marcus had already taken a few steps toward the hallway. Lena gathered every last ounce of strength, kicked hard at the base of the stack with her heel while holding the top boxes steady with her left hand. A split second later, she let go. The entire stack collapsed. A violent clatter exploded, metal, glass, and plastic crashing together, the sound echoing from the other side of the wall, toward the storage area near the garage. Marcus spun around. "The garage!" Elena frowned. "That cat again?" "Probably," Marcus said quickly. "I'll take care of it." Both of them turned and hurried off in the opposite direction. "Now," Lena whispered urgently. She flung the closet door open. Light flooded in, making Nathan dizzy. She dragged him out, no longer trying to maintain complete silence. Every second was a matter of life and death. Nathan managed one step before stumbling over the expensive Persian rug. His legs felt like cotton, soft, numb, unresponsive. If Lena hadn't slipped fully under his arm in time, he would have collapsed onto the cold stone floor. "Come on," she groaned under the strain. "Come on, Nathan." They didn't head for the front door. Lena knew the cameras were there. She pulled him into the narrow service corridor, a maze the homeowners rarely ever entered. They staggered past the laundry room, past piles of designer clothes, yet to be folded. Nathan recognized the suit he had worn yesterday, still carrying Elena's perfume. The thought made him nauseous. The back door leading to the garden was ajar. The freezing night air slapped Nathan in the face, but it did nothing to ease the burning heat scorching his chest from the inside. He gasped for breath, cold sweat soaking through him. "My car," he croaked, eyes drifting toward the main garage where his armored vehicle was parked. Lena shook her head violently. "No, your car has a tracker. The keys are still inside. They control everything." She pulled him toward the small back gate, the exit used by staff and garbage trucks. It was still unlocked. Lena had deliberately left it that way when her shift ended. They crossed the dark road behind the estate. Lena forced Nathan to walk across the grass to avoid making noise. Every step was a battle. Every breath Nathan took sounded like metal grinding against metal. He looked back. The house on the hill was still brightly lit, beautiful, magnificent. The place he had built with his entire life, the place he had once believed was his family. Now it looked like a lavish stage set for his death. Lena's car was parked 2 blocks away, beneath the shadow of an old tree. An old sedan, paint peeling, the passenger door dented. She unlocked it with a physical key and nearly threw Nathan into the front seat. He collapsed against the seat, his head striking the unpadded headrest. The smell of gasoline, dust, and old fabric filled his nostrils. Strangely enough, it was the first scent of safety he had felt all night. Lena jumped into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine sputtered and groaned like an aging creature dragged awake in the middle of the night. "Please," Lena whispered, tapping the steering wheel. "Start." The car shuddered, then hummed to life. She hit the gas, the tires skidded against the road, and the car surged into the darkness, away from the mansion, away from the trap, away from a death that had already been carefully prepared. The old car shook violently as it sped down the pothole-ridden road. Every jolt sent Nathan's body jerking, the pain in his chest flaring hotter and sharper. He no longer had the strength to groan. His breathing was shallow and rapid, as if his lungs had forgotten how to draw in air. Lena kept glancing at the passenger seat. Nathan's face was ashen under the sickly yellow streetlights, lips cracked and dry, cold sweat soaking his forehead. His eyes opened and closed, pupils rolling wildly. "Hey, don't fall asleep," she said urgently, her voice breaking. "Please, don't sleep now." Nathan didn't respond. A sudden spasm clenched his stomach, folding him forward. A dry retch escaped him, then sour liquid surged up his throat. Lena slammed on the brakes, nearly hitting the curb, and managed to turn his head aside just in time. Nathan trembled in violent waves, his entire body convulsed, stiffening for a few terrifying seconds. His head struck the window with a dull thud. White foam began to gather at the corner of his mouth. "No, no, no!" Lena screamed, one hand gripping the steering wheel, the other struggling to hold his head so he wouldn't bite his tongue. "Don't die in my car, please." She drove like a madwoman through the dark streets, steering away from the city center. "Police!" Nathan whispered, his voice almost gone. I have friends." Lena clenched her jaw. She yanked the expensive phone from his hand and hurled it out the window. "No, no police, no one from your world, you don't understand." She turned sharply, the car plunging into a neighborhood Nathan had never set foot in before. The streetlights were sparse. Low houses with stained walls lined the road, tangled power lines hanging overhead like spiderwebs. The smells of garbage, smoke, and burnt grease seeped into the car. This place... Nathan cracked his eyes open, peering through the dusty window, his voice filled with confusion. "Where are we?" "Somewhere they won't find you," Lena replied quickly. "Where their money and power mean nothing." The car stopped in front of a narrow alley. Lena cut the engine. The sudden silence inside the car crashed down heavily. Nathan lay motionless, his chest rising and falling weakly. His designer shirt was soaked with sweat, clinging to his skin. Lena opened the passenger door. Nathan's body nearly collapsed out. She had to summon every ounce of strength to drag him from the car. He was heavy like a dead weight, utterly limp, no longer able to help himself. "Please, help me. Help me," she muttered, not knowing who she was speaking to. A few neighbors peeked out from their doors, eyes curious and wary. They saw a poor woman struggling to drag a well-dressed white man, half dead. Whispers began to ripple through the alley. Lena looked up, her gaze sharp and cold. With just one look, no one dared to step closer. She dragged Nathan through the muddy alley, every step a brutal struggle. 10 short meters felt like 10 kilometers. Finally, she managed to open a warped iron gate, pulled him into a small courtyard, then slammed it shut and locked it tight. Lena's house came into view. Small, old, cramped. Red cement floors, damp green walls with peeling paint. But clean, orderly. Lena pulled Nathan inside and laid him down on an old sofa covered with a frayed wool blanket. His body trembled, teeth chattering uncontrollably. Fever began to burn him from the inside. "So, is this the end?" Nathan murmured deliriously, his clouded eyes staring at the corrugated metal ceiling. "Everything, reduced to this?" He let out a faint, crooked smile, then tears spilled from his eyes. "I gave her everything, money, the house, the company." Lena didn't answer. She knelt beside him, dipped a cloth into a basin of cold water, and placed it on his forehead. Her movements were clumsy, but resolute. "Be quiet," she said softly, not as a rebuke, but as if commanding fate itself. "Right now, you just need to live. Just live." Nathan called for his mother, for his father. He murmured Elena's name unconsciously, then broke down sobbing like a child. The man who had once stood at the highest podiums of powerful boardrooms now lay curled on an old sofa in a maid's house. Lena watched him, her throat tightening. "Your life of wealth is over, Nathan," she whispered, both compassionate and unyielding. "There are no guards here, no private doctors, no one to shield you. She tightened her grip on his hand, her calloused palm stark against his soft skin, which was growing cold. "There's only me, and your will to survive." Outside, the roar of motorbikes, the sound of people arguing and blaring music rose without pause. The world Nathan had once seen as distant and dangerous had become his only refuge. He closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to hit rock bottom. 3 days passed without any sense of time. Inside Lena's small house, day and night blurred together through Nathan's fevers. Sometimes he lay unconscious for hours. Sometimes he jolted awake in panic, his heart racing, mumbling apologies meant for no one in particular. Lena barely left the sofa. She slept sitting up, ate in haste, listened to every rise and fall of his breathing as if it were a life-and-death clock. On the morning of the 4th day, Nathan stayed awake longer than usual. His eyes were still unfocused, but for the first time, he was aware. He sensed the smell of food, fried eggs, and cold rice, a smell so simple it felt foreign compared to his former life. The old television in the corner of the room was on, its screen washed in grayish blue, the sound crackling with static. Lena had turned it on only to break the heavy silence, not expecting anything. Then the news anchor's voice came through. "It has been 4 days since Mr. Nathan Cole, a well-known real estate tycoon, mysteriously went missing." Nathan froze. His entire body went rigid, as if someone had gripped the last remaining nerve inside him. Lena spun toward the television. On the screen appeared an image painfully familiar, the gate of the hilltop mansion, the house he had built with his entire life. And then Elena appeared. She stood before a cluster of microphones, black sunglasses covering half her face, a black scarf loosely draped over her hair. The perfect grieving wife. Her hand trembled as she held a tissue, her voice breaking at precisely the right moments, with precisely the right emotion. "We are very worried," Elena said, her voice cracking just enough for the cameras to capture it. "Nathan, he hasn't been himself lately. Paranoia, aggression. He believed someone was trying to harm him." A hoarse laugh tore out of Nathan's throat. It sounded like metal being ripped apart. "Lies," he whispered. The image cut to Marcus Cole. He stood beside Elena, one hand resting on her back like a source of support. His expression was sorrowful, controlled, the look of a younger brother bearing a heavy responsibility. "We are heartbroken," Marcus said, staring straight into the camera. "But the truth is that Nathan illegally withdrew more than $15 million from the company. We believe that in his unstable mental state, he fled." Nathan gripped the edge of the sofa until his knuckles turned white. Then the anchor lowered his voice as if announcing a verdict. "Police are currently investigating the possible involvement of a former housekeeper at the Cole residence, Lena Cruz, 29. Lena went numb. Her ID photo appeared on the screen. A serious face, tired eyes, a person entirely different from the words now being read aloud. Sources claim that Lena Cruz was involved in an illicit romantic relationship with Mr. Cole. One theory suggests that this woman exploited the businessman's mental condition to poison him and steal his assets. The bag of rice slipped from Lena's hands and hit the floor. The dull sound echoed through the small house. Rice spilled out, scattering beneath the table. Lena didn't bend down to pick it up. She stood frozen, hands shaking, mouth open, but no sound coming out. "Mistress," she repeated, her voice shattered. "A con artist." Tears burst out uncontrollably, not because she feared arrest, but because her dignity had just been executed before millions of eyes. "My mother will see this," Lena sobbed. "The church, the neighbors, everyone." She collapsed into sobs, folding in on herself as if someone had punched her straight in the chest. To Lena, money was never everything. Honor was the only thing she truly had. and they had taken it from her. Nathan watched the scene, and suddenly his mind became strangely clear. The pain in his chest was still there. His body was still weak. But something had shifted. A cold, precise anger, not explosive, but spreading like ice. He pushed himself up, unsteady, and walked toward the television. Lena was still crying, instinctively trying to pick up the scattered grains of rice, cleaning up a mess she hadn't caused. Nathan turned off the TV. The screen went black. Silence fell. He turned back to Lena. For the first time, his eyes no longer belonged to a man on the run. "Listen to me," Nathan said, his voice hoarse but firm. "They don't just want to kill me." Lena looked up, eyes red and swollen. "They want to erase us." He stepped closer and knelt down to meet her gaze. "And I won't let that happen." The silence inside the small house stretched on for a long time. There was no more crackling television, no more Elena's rehearsed voice or Marcus's sanctimonious gaze, only Nathan's heavy breathing and the sobs Lena was struggling to keep trapped in her throat. Nathan was still kneeling there, in front of her. That posture, a man who once stood at the pinnacle of power kneeling before a housekeeper, would have been unimaginable to him just weeks ago. Yet now it felt terrifyingly natural, as if this was how things were always meant to be. "Look at me," Nathan said slowly, his voice low and rough, but steady. "Don't bow your head any more." Lena shook her head, tears dripping onto the cement floor. "You don't understand. They called me a gold digger, a mistress. I'll never get another job. No one will believe me." Nathan looked at her calloused hands, the hands that had dragged him back from death, only to be crushed by the media in a few minutes of airtime. A cold anger rose in his chest, unlike blind rage. It was sharp, focused, purposeful. "I believe you," he said, "and that is enough." Lena let out a small, broken laugh. "It's not enough, Nathan. In this world, truth doesn't beat money." Nathan rose slowly. His body was still weak. Every step had to be calculated. But his eyes had changed. No haze, no fear, only a decision that had fully taken shape. "You're wrong," he said. "I've thought about this carefully," Nathan continued, his voice slow but firm. "About what they did, about every detail. Elena didn't act on impulse. Neither did Marcus. They prepared everything too well." He took a deep breath. Pain stabbed through his chest, but he ignored it. "Which means they left traces." Lena looked up. "You mean?" "Documents, medication, fake medical records, conversations they thought no one overheard." Nathan's gaze sharpened. "And there's only one place that holds all of it." Lena understood. She swallowed hard. "The mansion." "Yes?" Nathan nodded. "They think I'm dead, or if I'm alive, that I'm a madman no one will ever believe. That's their mistake." He walked to the table and picked up an old sheet of paper and the pen Lena used to track expenses. His hand trembled slightly, but his writing was clear. He quickly sketched the layout of the house, the living room, hallways, stairs, the office. "Marcus won't wait long," Nathan said. "He needs to legitimize his power. He needs signatures. He needs celebrations." "The party," Lena whispered. "They always throw parties when they want to show off a victory." Nathan looked at her. "And that's when they're most careless." The air inside the house shifted. Fear was still there, but it no longer ruled. It was pushed back by something else. Will. "I can't go back there," Nathan said plainly. "The cameras recognize me. The guards know my walk. The moment I step inside, alarms will go off." Lena was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, very softly. "But they won't recognize me?" Nathan looked at her. "I worked there for 3 years," Lena continued. "I know how that house breathes. I know which cameras glitch, which doors never lock properly, who looks at me and who never does." She lifted her head. Her eyes were still red, but no longer weak. "If you want the truth, I can bring it out." Nathan studied the woman in front of him for a long time. Then he nodded. "I don't just want the truth, Lena." He spoke slowly, each word carved into the air. "I want them to kneel in front of you." In that poor, cramped house, there was no handshake, no grand oath, only two people, both betrayed, who chose to stand up. Together. The next day passed slowly, as if time itself were deliberately stretching to test hearts that were still trembling. The small room where Nathan was hiding sank into a taut, nerve-tight silence. As the sun began to dip behind the crooked rooftops, Lena opened the worn old backpack resting at the foot of the bed. She changed out of her simple clothes and into a faded light blue uniform, the outfit that had been her second skin for years. Her hair was pulled back neatly, twisted into a tight, low bun. She removed her earrings, then slipped on a pair of old plastic-framed glasses that made her look a few years older. When Lena turned back around, Nathan felt as though a part of the air in the room had been drained away. She had put on a form the entire city was accustomed to seeing, a form no one ever remembered. Lena gently closed the wooden door behind her and merged into the alley washed in pale yellow streetlight. The color of her uniform slowly dissolved into the sparse flow of people moving through the poor neighborhood until it became nothing more than a faint blue blur at the end of the street. Nathan pulled on his worn jacket and pushed himself out of the room. His body was not yet fully steady, but his steps now carried a purpose: to protect the woman who had kept him anchored to this world. The coal estate glowed atop the hill like an over-polished jewel. From a distance, it looked flawless to the point of unreality. Golden lights wrapped around tall palm trees. Luxury cars streamed through the main gate in a steady line. The sound of a string orchestra drifted through the air, floating like a lullaby written for those who believed the world existed to serve them. But to Lena, this was not a party. It was a den. She stood hidden behind a hedge on the empty lot beside the estate, her heart pounding so violently her ears rang. The fitted service uniform clung to her body. Old flat shoes. Her hair was tightly tied back, her face so lightly made up it was nearly bare. She had erased herself. Lena took one last deep breath, then crouched and sprinted across the damp lawn, using the moment when two guards by the pool were laughing and lighting cigarettes. She did not run upright. She ran low, bent forward, moving in the familiar posture of someone used to wiping under tables no one ever noticed. The side door leading to the laundry wing stood slightly open, just as Lena remembered. She slipped inside. The space was cool and dim, filled with the sharp scent of detergent and damp fabric, so familiar it stung. This had once been where her days began and ended, where no one greeted her, where no one ever asked if she was tired. The staff spiral staircase rose ahead. Her phone vibrated softly inside her jacket. Lena brushed it with the back of her hand, a silent reminder that Nathan was still out there somewhere, that she was not completely alone. She climbed, one step at a time. The old wood creaked faintly. Each time it did, she froze, pressing her back to the wall, her heartbeat pounding like a war drum. The second floor was far quieter. The sounds of the party were swallowed by thick carpet and soundproof walls. The lighting here was softer, more refined, and far more dangerous. This was the private wing, the true territory of the Cole family. Lena moved down the hallway with her head lowered, a cleaning cloth in hand like an invisible shield. Two staff members passed her. Neither looked at her face for more than a second. Just as Nathan had said, she was air. The office door at the end of the hall stood slightly ajar. A thin blade of golden light spilled across the dark carpet. Lena stopped, flattening herself against the wall, listening. A woman's voice came from inside. "Elena, Lena recognized instantly, her heart tightening. "These flowers all need to be replaced," Elena snapped. "White looks like a funeral. I want red, red." "Yes, ma'am," another voice replied, Mrs. Adler, the head housekeeper. Lena held her breath. Footsteps approached the door. Lena retreated quickly into a recessed alcove where a large ceramic vase stood. Elena swept out, her black dress brushing Lena's legs by mere centimeters. The heavy perfume made Lena nauseous. Elena did not look at her. Mrs. Adler followed, head lowered, notes in hand. They turned toward the main staircase. Lena silently counted to 3. Then she slipped into the office. She closed the door slowly, holding the handle to prevent a click. The room lay submerged in the soft glow of a green desk lamp. The scent of leather, cigar smoke, and power enveloped her. A massive dark wood desk, a bookshelf to the left. Lena stepped forward, her hands trembling. The Divine Comedy. The book sat exactly where Nathan had told her. She tried to pull it. It did not move. Her heart slammed harder. She remembered. Not pull, tilt. Lena gently tilted the book to the right. Click. A tiny sound, nearly non-existent. The wooden panel behind it rotated open, revealing a numeric keypad embedded in the wall. 3, 2, 8. Her fingers slipped with sweat. She inhaled and entered it again. Beep. The safe door opened with a metallic sigh. Lena froze. Inside was a small glass vial, nearly empty. Amber liquid, poison. Beside it lay a stack of documents. She lifted the top page. Diagnosis: paranoid psychotic disorder, civil incapacity. Patient: Nathan Cole. Lena bit down hard on her lip. Tears welled in her eyes. She slipped the vial into her jacket pocket, folded the papers, pressing them tight against her stomach. She had just turned to leave when the door handle turned. Lena did not think. She dropped to the floor and slid under the massive desk. Her heart hammered so violently she feared it would shake the tabletop. 2 pairs of shoes entered the room, polished men's shoes and red high heels. "You worry too much, Marcus," Elena's voice said, accompanied by the sound of wine being poured. If Nathan were alive, he would have shown up by now. Marcus chuckled softly. "Better safe than sorry. Without a body, nothing is ever certain." Lena quietly pulled out her phone, cupping the screen in her palm. She hit record. "Elena, everything is ready," Marcus said. "Tomorrow I'll sign the transfer. The company will be mine." "Ours," Elena corrected lightly. "And no need to wait for a corpse." "He's probably dead in some alley," Marcus said casually. "And even if he's alive, no one will believe a madman." They laughed. Their laughter echoed through the room that had once been Nathan's. "What about the maid?" Marcus asked. "That Lena woman?" Elena shrugged. "A disposable pawn. The press has already handled her. No one listens to a poor woman standing against us." Blood rushed to Lena's head. She clenched her phone. Her hand no longer trembled. Marcus stepped closer to the bookshelf. Lena held her breath. If he opened the safe... "Elena!" a voice called from the hallway. "Your guests are here." Elena clicked her tongue. "Business later." They turned and left. The door closed. Lena remained beneath the desk for several more seconds, lungs burning. When silence finally settled, she crawled out and stood, her legs numb. She had everything: the poison, the documents, and their confession. She opened the door and hurried into the hall, but as she rounded the corner, she collided with a figure. "You?" Mrs. Adler's voice was ice cold. The woman's eyes immediately recognized Lena. "What are you doing here?" And then she screamed, "Security!" Everything collapsed in a single second. Lena did not think. She reacted. Her body twisted on pure instinct, the instinct of someone who had lived too long in a state of constant alert. She lunged forward, but Mrs. Adler's arm shot out faster, sharp nails digging into Lena's sleeve. "You dare come back here?" the woman hissed, her voice thick with rage and cruel delight. "You snake in my house." Lena staggered, losing her balance. The cleaning cloth slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. The hallway suddenly felt endless, the golden lights painfully bright. From the staircase, hurried footsteps echoed. Someone had heard. "Let go of me," Lena growled, trying to wrench her arm free. Mrs. Adler sneered, tightening her grip. "This time, you're not getting away. You will pay for what you've done." "For what I've done?" Lena laughed, a dry, broken sound. "You're mistaken." She gathered her strength and stomped hard on Mrs. Adler's foot. The woman screamed and stumbled back, releasing her. Lena did not hesitate. She threw her full weight forward, slamming straight into her opponent's chest. Both of them crashed toward the supply closet, the narrow room stacked with tablecloths and spare laundry. The door flew open. Mrs. Adler fell backward into the pile of thick fabrics with a heavy thud. She cursed, struggling to rise. But Lena had already moved. She slammed the door shut with her entire body and locked the metal latch from the outside. "You'll die for this!" Mrs. Adler screamed, her voice muffled by cloth and thick wood. "Marcus will kill you." Lena leaned against the door for one brief second, her heart hammering wildly, her ears ringing. There was no time. She turned and ran. The hallway stretched ahead like a tunnel. Music from downstairs still drifted up, careless and mocking. Lena veered into the staff spiral staircase, her skirt catching on the railing, nearly sending her falling. She grabbed the banister and slid down the steps, her mind reduced to a single command. Out! Her phone vibrated violently inside her pocket. "Nathan." She did not answer. She pressed the phone to her chest as if holding a second life. The stairs ended at the laundry wing. The side door was still there, but the light spilling in from outside made her hesitate. A radio crackled somewhere. "An intruder in the West Wing. Check immediately." They knew. Lena did not go straight for the door. She cut sharply left, slipping through the wine storage room, the smell of oak and alcohol thick in the air. A narrow passage led to a low window near the ground, a route she had used hundreds of times to carry laundry outside. The window was ajar. She climbed through and slid down onto dew-wet grass. Her skirt tore, pain flared in her knee. But she did not stop. Lena ran low, skimming along the hedges. Footsteps thundered behind her, guards shouting, dogs barking. She burst across an empty lot where weeds slashed at her calves. A searchlight swept past her, missing her by inches. Lena rolled into a shallow ditch and held her breath, her heart pounding as if it would burst. Footsteps rushed past. She waited 2 more seconds, then sprang up and ran again. The street appeared. Street lights. An old car idling in a dark corner. The car door flew open. "Now!" Nathan whispered, his voice hoarse and stretched tight with fear. Lena dove into the passenger seat. The door slammed shut. The car roared forward just as headlights swept the space behind them. Inside the cramped cabin, Lena folded forward, gasping. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. She pulled a small glass vial from inside her clothes, then a neatly folded stack of papers. Finally, she lifted her phone. "I have everything," she said, her voice breaking between breaths. "The medicine, the documents, and their confession." Nathan looked at her for a long, silent second. Then he laughed, a short, hoarse laugh, tangled with disbelief and a relief so sharp it almost hurt. "You did it," he said. "You really did it." Lena rested her head against the seat. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but her lips curved into a weary smile. Behind them, the Cole mansion still blazed with light, music still floating into the night, as if nothing had happened. The lights had once been his pride. Now they were merely a stage. "You don't have to do this," Lena said quietly, her hand still gripping the recording phone. "The evidence is enough. We can hand everything over to the lawyers." Nathan shook his head. "No," he said, his voice low and unwavering. "They tried to kill me in the dark, so I will end this under the lights." He opened the car door. The pain in his chest was still there, dull, persistent, reminding him that he had not fully escaped death. But every step he took now was firm. No hesitation, no fear. Nathan Cole stepped onto the stone path leading into his own party. The main gates opened. A security guard turned to stop him, then froze. "Step aside," Nathan said. Not loudly, not necessary. There was something in his eyes that made them move back automatically. Inside the grand hall, the string orchestra was playing a soft melody. Shareholders stood in small clusters. Marcus was in the center of the room, perfectly tailored suit, a wineglass in hand, laughing with a local politician. Elena stood beside him, beautiful, composed, the flawless image of the widow about to become the new lady of the house. Then the music stopped. No one signaled it, but the entire room fell silent when Nathan stepped into the light. A few whispers rippled through the crowd like an undercurrent. "That can't be." "Is that him?" "He's not dead?" Marcus turned. The smile on his face froze. The wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. Elena went pale. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Nathan walked forward, slowly, each step like driving a nail into the floor. He stopped in the center of the room, where every eye was fixed on him. Nathan Cole stood on the stage platform, the spotlight shining directly onto a face that had grown visibly thinner. Below him, hundreds of phones were raised high. News channels had been live-streaming from the very first minute. He drew a short breath. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said hoarsely. "I have just been through a test of trust with my own family." He pulled a small glass vial from the inside pocket of his coat and raised it beneath the lights. Inside was a pale amber liquid. "This is a slow-acting cardiac suppressant," Nathan said clearly. "A poison that was mixed regularly into my morning drinks. The goal was to make my death look like a natural stroke." A murmur rippled through the crowd like an undercurrent. Elena jumped to her feet. "He's lying!" she screamed, tears smearing her makeup. "He's mentally unstable. Just look at him. He kidnapped the maid and forced her to make all this up." Nathan did not look at her. He took out a folder of documents. "These are the results of independent tests from this morning, conducted under the supervision of the federal police. My blood contains no sedatives, but it does contain clear traces of toxins. And this," he flipped another page, "is the forged authorization Marcus planned to use to transfer ownership of the Cole Group." The crowd began to stir. Protest turned into outrage. Marcus let out a harsh laugh, then shouted, "You always had everything. The money, the power, the Cole name. I was just a shadow. You should have disappeared a long time ago." The words rang directly into the microphone, an admission that could not be taken back. Marcus spun around, his gaze locking onto Lena, who stood tucked beside Elena. "It's this woman who ruined everything," he roared. "If it weren't for her, you'd be dead already." He lunged toward Lena. The crowd screamed, but the blow never landed. Nathan was already there. He stepped in, twisted his body, and delivered a clean hook. The impact sounded dry and heavy, like a hammer striking stone. Marcus snapped backward and collapsed onto the stage, motionless, blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. Nathan stood in front of Lena, breathing hard. "No one is allowed to come near her," he said, his voice low and cold. Elena crumpled to the floor and crawled to his feet. "Nathan, I was forced. I didn't want to do it. I'm still your wife. We can still start over." Nathan looked at the woman who had once been his entire world. He felt no anger, no pain, only emptiness. He removed her hands from his legs. "Save those words for the court." Sirens wailed from the street outside. Black federal vehicles flooded in. "Hands up!" Marcus was cuffed on the spot. Elena was hauled to her feet amid hysterical screams. Then, right in the middle of the stage, before hundreds of cameras, Nathan dropped to one knee. The entire hall held its breath. "Lena Cruz," he said softly, "thank you for keeping me in this world." Lena burst into tears, then bent down and wrapped her arms around him. In a world that tried to erase her, he chose to make her unforgettable.